Hey, good afternoon, everybody. So, welcome to the IPC webinar. This is our fourth one. We're working with the British Schools of the Middle East Network, and we're really delighted to be able to have another presentation to be able to share with you today. This topic's a topic which is really important, I think, because it's something that we all recognize as being one of the aspects which is something to do with all of our schools, about how we actually work as an international setting, what that looks like, how do we get our children involved in this, and the long-term benefits of what that will look like. So I'll just introduce myself. So I'm Sarah Brennan. I'm head of the prep school here at Brighton College in Dubai. So we've been working with the IPC since we started. So we're now finishing our third year. And so this was something that we were really keen to be able to bring into the school right from the start. So what we are going to do today is we're going to have the experience of others that are going to be coming in and sharing with us their experience. And I think that's one of the great things about the British Schools of the Middle East Network, that we can see what other people are doing. And we've got two special speakers today. So we will have Stephanie Taylor. Now, she's at our Saud Global School in Muscat. And we've got Zeb Hamdani from the British Overseas School in Karachi. Both are experienced teachers. Both have been in the Middle East and Asia, should I say, for a long time, and both using the IPC. So they'll have things that they will be able to share with us. So we're very pleased that they're able to do that. And I'm going to hand over to Stephanie and ask her to introduce herself and to be able to tell us her perspective of what we've got to share today. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you. Okay. Can you just confirm that my screen is sharing?
It is, yes.
Okay, lovely. Okay, thank you, Sarah. Yes, so as Sarah says, I've been working in the Middle East for quite a long time now. Since 2009. So I've been in Kuwait and Al Ain in the UAE, and then moved to Muscat in 2015 and joined first at the British School of Muscat, and now I'm at AGS where I'm the head of primary. And IPC has been being used in some form or other at AGS since it opened in 2016, but it is new to me this year. So I've spent the first part of this year kind of getting to grips with the IPC and getting to, you know, read through all of the documentation and really get my head around what it is and how it can be used. Okay. Okay, so focusing in then on the international mindedness and global competence, which is what the wording has moved towards now in the updated IPC framework. I've just picked out two parts from the learning goals from IPC 2020 related to international mindedness. That's the part I'm going to focus on more than the global competence in my part of the presentation. So developing a curiosity and interest in the world through exploring and developing an understanding of multiple perspectives, and to gain knowledge of global issues and how identities affect perspectives. So for me, these two learning goals are so important because it's this idea of multitudes of perspectives, that there are many ways of looking at things and that everybody brings their own individual perspective and perspectives to their understanding of the world and the countries that they live in and their own personal identities. So something that I'm very passionate about as an international educator is this so-called concept of third culture kids. So third culture kids are people who have been raised in a culture that is different from their parents or the culture of their nationality. So a country that's different than what it says on their passport, or have lived there during a significant part of their childhood. It's also sometimes termed as a global nomad, and takes into account that the child is in this situation not through their choice, but due to perhaps migration of their family, or especially economic migration. And for me, I expand the definition to children in the school that I'm currently working in who are local children. They are Omani children, but in a way they're also in a third culture because their parents have chosen for them to be educated not in the state school system, but in a private British style education. So for them, being in our school, AGS school, is a third culture situation, even though they are in the country of their nationality. So there are lots of benefits and challenges to being a third culture kid. And I am a third culture kid myself, having been born and raised in a country other than my parents' nationality. And so I particular kind of personal connection to this concept because when I grew up in Malawi, we're Irish, I'm Irish. And then when I was about 9 years old, we moved back to live permanently in Ireland. And suddenly I realized I wasn't like the other people there. I wasn't like the other children in the class. And they were saying to me, where are you from? So it was, I realized that either I wasn't Irish or maybe there was more than one way to be Irish. So it's very important to me that schools, international schools, and parents of the children who choose to send their children to international schools are aware of this kind of world in between, not belonging truly to one or the other, but being in this world in between. And that's where I think the international mindedness aspects of the IPC can be so powerfully used to help our children develop that identity and understanding of being a global citizen. So I've picked out for each of the mileposts, I've picked out one of the units that we use or that we're planning to use next year at AGS that address certain aspects of international mindedness. So for milepost 1, which is our grades 1 and 2, we've picked out the unit Who Am I? And the learning goal, be able to articulate where you consider home and why. So I think it's a really powerful, empowering thing to teach children that identity isn't just something that is what it says on your passport or the country that you were born in, but you can consider other places home. Some of our children have lived in multiple countries and cultures, or have parents from 2 different cultures, and that it is okay to decide where you consider home and explain why. So 2 of the tasks that I love from this unit are in international task number 2. One of the questions that we ask is, how many different countries are you connected to? Because that's really what identity is all about. It's about feeling connected and feeling that you belong somewhere. So it's looking at the different countries of the world, getting children to pinpoint onto the map of the world all the countries that they have connections to. Maybe they've got family living in different countries, or here's the country I was born, here's where I live now, that's where my parents were born, and that they have all these different connections, and that, you know, not everybody is just from there, that one place, that's my identity. And in geography task 1, if you were lost, could you find your way back home? So again, it's a wonderful opportunity to explore what is home. And I'm always looking for ways to link our learning together. So we also use Oliver Jeffers' texts in English, and 3 of the books that I particularly love that complement this learning really well are the books that he wrote at the start of the lockdown, which is called Here We Are, Notes for Living on Planet Earth. And that's it's a story written addressing a newborn baby, and it's all about the earth and the wonderful things that are there, and belonging. This is where you are, this is where you belong. And the way back home obviously is a little bit of a obvious maybe way to explore what is home. So the boy helping the alien to get back home. And lost and found as well, which we actually used in our kindergarten years this year, again, is all about the little boy trying to help the penguin to get back home because he's lost, but in the end, he wasn't lost, he was just lonely, and it was all about making a connection and realizing that belonging somewhere is about belonging to the people that are there, feeling love for something and love for a place. And it doesn't just mean you have to go back to your country. So that's how we sort of start to introduce those ideas of identity and connections into our milepost 1. And then I've picked out this one from milepost 2, and I've got a couple of different perspectives that we look at this from. So different places, similar lives, which we've used in milepost 2 this year. If I can just look at my notes. Okay, so one of the things that I have often found teaching in the Middle East is that expatriate children who are non-Muslims very often don't have an opportunity because they don't study Islamic studies in the international schools themselves. They don't do religious education. They quite often are completely oblivious to Muslim culture. And the world that they're living in, which I think is something that schools really need to try and address. I think even from we can hear the sound of the call to prayer when we're in school, like it's something that punctuates our daily lives. And I think it's really important for all of our students, Muslim or not, that they understand what that is and how important the Muslim religion and culture is to life in the Middle East. And there are so many similarities between the festivals that kind of milepost through the year between Islam and between other religions as well. So we really try to respectfully help children to recognize them, to understand what the festivals are. And then they can talk about the connections. Oh, it's a little bit like when we do this. So in Eid, when Muslims, traditionally gather with their families and give gifts. For Christian children, you could say, oh, it's a little bit like Christmas. We do similar activities. And even within the Islamic faith, that there are some slight variations between different countries as well. When I lived in Kuwait, halfway through Ramadan, they had this amazing child-focused celebration called Gurgan. And then when I moved to Oman, it was very similar, but it's called Kuran Kasho here, but it's the it's a very similar festival. But and I think it's worth teaching children about these things and showing, look, there are different perspectives even within one faith. I think that no child who lives in a Muslim country shouldn't be able to identify what the Kaaba is and to understand how important pilgrimage is to Muslims, and indeed all the 5 pillars of Islam and the aspects of charity and family that go along with the month of Ramadan as well. And then this may be more of the traditional kind of international mindedness activities. International days are such a fantastic opportunity for children to put on their national dress or wear colours of flags of the multiple countries that they identify with, to research about their country, their host country, their home country or countries, and to just big celebration of everything that it is to identify with a particular country. And I think it's interesting for children to hear about national days from other countries as well, and to note similarities and differences. One thing I've noticed living in 3 different Middle East countries are the similarities between how national days are celebrated. Lots of colour, flags, cars being decorated, parades, just really, really joyful special occasions. And then some other countries where there are, traditional songs or traditional parades, maybe a little bit more rigorous and ordered in some other countries. And I think it's interesting how a country's national day can reveal aspects about the culture of that country. And of course, I always take the opportunity to teach everybody about St. Patrick's Day as well, because it's very important. And then a little bit more of a similar serious perspective that we have looked at through the different places, similar lives, is to look at how people in different countries have different traditions and values and ways of living. So not being afraid to kind of shy away from current events. In Muscat and in the UK in the last year, there have been deaths of significant figures in Muscat. In Oman at the start of 2020, the Sultan Qaboos passed away, and then obviously a couple of months ago in the UK, Prince Philip passed away. So I think it would be very interesting for us, looking to future planning, to sensitively use those as an opportunity to reveal to children aspects of that are similar and different in more serious aspects of international living, how a country responds when a political leader passes away, what similarities and differences there are. So very public occasions, the use of flags and national imagery, military and royal families being in attendance as well. And then some differences as well. So something that I learned when Sultan Qaboos passed away was about the traditions of their Ibadi Muslims in Oman. So the Ibadi Muslims traditions of burial, very, very different to anything that I would be used to from coming from my own cultures. So without obviously being sensitive to the age of the children and what would be appropriate, I think it's a really good opportunity to look at similarities and differences in how countries respond to the deaths of leaders. And then finally, looking at one of our Milepost 3 units, which is a new choice for us for next year. So which will be for our grade 6s. And we want to enhance the geographical and historical aspects by looking at a comparative study of Muscat and the city of York in England. So we're looking at similarities and differences between people and places, and also understanding why groups of people migrate. So again, this is really big aspect for children developing their own identities as they understand the reasons why their families have chosen to come and live in Muscat. Sorry, my husband's got the children cooped up in the other room. So we're looking at the history of the development of the city of Muscat and the city of York, which were both founded at exactly the same time in the 1st century AD. Both cities have got a history of trading and invasions as well. So York was founded by the Romans and then was invaded by a series of the Anglo-Saxons, the Vikings, then finally the Normans. And the geography of the city reflects those things, with the Clifford's Tower built by William the Conqueror, and the use of the city walls and the city gates. And Muscat as well has a long history of invasion from the Ottomans, the Portuguese, and other Persian countries as well. And Oman itself invaded and conquered a huge section of the coastline of East Africa. So looking at those reasons why people invade, it's not just that the Vikings were vicious, but they actually invaded for economic reasons, that there is trade, so it's not just kind of that simplistic making Viking helmets and things like that, but actually really looking at the historical and the economic reasons for those periods of history. And then looking today that Muscat is a place that people come from all over the world to work, and why do the children think that is? And let's research why people would come to work in Muscat. Why do the families that are reflected in our student body count, why are they in Muscat? What industries do they work at? And then looking at the idea of the global village as well, and how are we global citizens? We can identify with different places around the world, or where do you think you might like to live in the future? Why might you go and live in another place? And looking at those reasons for migration, but grounded very much in the children's own identities, and as they're starting to get a little bit older, starting to be aware of what they might want to do in the future. And then just looking at things like, do you think that nationality is important? Do you think that there should be, passports and borders, or do you think that people should be able to move freely around the world? What does it mean to be a global citizen, and how does that sit alongside your own identity with the country or countries that you identify with? So I hope that has given a bit of an insight into some of the things that we're thinking about in AGS, and how we're hopefully supporting children to develop their international identities and international mindedness.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. It just comes across all the time, all the connections, the relevance that all of these topics have to the pupils, the places they are, and what that looks like. And it's so interesting to just see how your school has picked on just specific parts of it and made those links between where you are in Muscat and other places in the world and what that looks like. So really great to see all that coming together. So thank you so much for sharing with us. And we'll probably roll back at the end to be able to just have a few sort of questions around that. But I would like to pass over to Zeb and say, thank you, Zeb. Would you just take us away with your section now?
Sure. Right. Able to see my screen?
Yes, that's it. Thank you.
And hear me properly. All right. Thank you very much, Sarah. Good afternoon, everyone. And it is my pleasure to be here to share some of the ways in which we foster international mindedness at BOS here in Karachi and try to build global perspectives for our students. I'm also thankful to BSME for giving us this platform to share ideas and good practice with each other. Although IPC units themselves are very comprehensive, but each school's context is different, and hearing from Stephanie as well has given us some ideas that we may perhaps be implementing in our school as well. I will begin by introducing myself. I have been in the teaching profession since 2008 and have lived, I think, nearly 20 years in the Middle East before moving to Karachi, Pakistan. And I can relate to that TCN, third country nationals, for my own children as well. And I think it has built their personalities the way they are. And thriving in the international environment, being able to settle in more easily in the United States and any part of the world because of the firm grounding they've had. And I think what the context of BOS is quite in contrast with the other schools in the Middle East, and what Stephanie was referring to as having the multicultural environment around them as well. Our school is so British Overseas School Karachi is a small school with a family feel, a community feel to it. We have around 350 students. We are one form through, and the student population is majority Pakistani students, so that definitely is in contrast to the multicultural environment of the Middle East. So you get children who do travel, who are aware of the world, traveling with their family, and may have family across the globe, which we try and make connections with as well. We have teachers from all across the world, so they bring in their rich experiences as well. But the student population, majority is from Pakistan. So it becomes even more important for us to make them aware, bring the world to them as much as we can, open up their minds, give them that perspective of what is out there, and to channel their thinking into the positive global mindset that is the need of the day. We have a strong part of our vision statement is to have creative, constructive, and responsible members of the international community. So from the onset as a school, that's part of our vision. So it's very important for us. And for that, we have a discrete way of teaching the other subjects is through English National Curriculum, but IPC is the backbone for majority of the overall perspectives, and the science and the history, geography, social studies. And so that's like the concrete way of delivering the curriculum to our children. And in that, international mindedness comes at the end, pretty much at the end and along the way in different units as well. We really bring it down to the child taking it all in and then thinking, where am I in all of this and what can I do about it? So their ownership comes in, their global citizenship comes in. And we have been successfully been able to do that. What the big change we've had over the last year is, of course, we have been online since last year in March 2020. And we have planned to come back hybrid a couple of times, but the cases went up again. So that provided us with the unique and new challenges of, because IPC is very hands-on, we have so much of group work and, you know, classroom tasks and everything. So switching to digital platforms and finding ways of showcasing learning and engaging the students above all to still make the lessons engaging and bring about that learning that we want from the children. But I can say safely, I think we did achieve. We are quite proud of the learning that has gone on over these past, I think, 13, 14 months with our students. And IPC has always been the most popular one, the subject for our students in primary, and it continues to be. Even in online, we have that, you know, which was your favorite subject? What did you enjoy? So we do little feedback sessions, and IPC is always on the top there. So I will like now get into the ways in which we actually the strategies we have used. So I will start by one unit and go in detail with how we deliver that one unit, and then an overview of different units. What we have is that we believe that, you know, the students need to be sensitive to the world. They need to have the national and international ways of looking at things, and basically to open up their minds to the world out there. So we look at different aspects of bringing things into their personality and way of thinking that will open up their minds. So our big picture for international mindedness, we use, this is just an overview to begin with, myths and legends. They are introduced to the cultures and belief systems around the world from ancient times. Then we want to evaluate their own role in making the change to reduce the global warming and what can they do through the unit of weather and climate. We also have champions for change, through which we see how one individual even can enable a change in the world, and look at the examples from visionary leaders across the world. And this unit culminates in an election where they form political parties and they have their own election through that. And it is one of the very popular units for year 5 here. Chocolate is a very popular unit, I think, across IPC, across the world. We try to bring about their awareness of fair trade and its impact on the farmers. This unit is for year 3. They're quite young, yet you see their engagement and how vocal they are about the rights of the farmers. But this is not fair, and, you know, they need to get their right, and somebody is earning so much through them, and yet they don't get what they deserve. So all of that discussion is generated, and the ethical issues concerned around the trade of cocoa are brought out. And then this is the unit I will start with. I think Stephanie also has it, but it would be interesting to see how we have the same unit, but chose to go about it using more of a digital platform, considering the situation we have been in. Right, so let me get right into. Right, so here we have different places, similar lives. We did cross-curricular with literacy. There were other elements of implementation, but this is one key area that worked out well as well. So here we have the objective that we looked at is that people in different countries have different traditions, values, and ways of living. And what we started with was we have our digital curriculum through Pearson, Active Learn, and we started with this book, which is Let's Go To. So from the onset, the children try and answer this question. where would you like to live? So they're introduced to these children to make that connection from a child to a child. So researching about a certain country does work, but when the children see how another child is living in another country, I think that helps in the engagement, that helps in making that connection, that there is another child like me, 9 or 10 years old, living in another country, and this is what their life is like. Each one of the screens of this book has a country on it, and it talks about the life of the child. It's from the child's perspective. So they introduce themselves and talk about their life at home, at school, and at play. And then we draw comparisons to our own children's, our own students' lives at home, at work, at home, at play, and at school. And the connection that they make is amazing, though it's digital, but there are, audio recordings with the greetings in a different language and everything. So this has been a good resource for us to dip into. From there, we have our digital platform, Shobi, which we use for the children to upload their assignments and to give them assignments. Through that, we gave them activities for identifying similarities, differences, and they created this digital page about their own country as well. So they draw the comparison and wrote about at home, at school, and at play, and some of the games and sports from their own country, popular food and everything. So help them make that connection. And they really thoroughly enjoyed uploading voice notes through Shobi on this and showcasing their own life in Pakistan, calling it magnificent Pakistan. So that was super engaging for them. Then we had sessions in Zoom breakout rooms where we guided, modeled their way of choosing a certain country that they would like to live in, because reminding them along the way that, okay, this is the question we need to answer, where would you like to live? We did start with a lot of them saying, I don't want to move anywhere. I want to live here with my family. But then we had to put it in the perspective of, if you had to decide to live in another country, then opened up their minds like, okay, now I know that these are my priorities. These are the kind of questions I should have before I decide to live in another country. And we then help them brainstorm what did they like about that certain country. So if they're even confused at the beginning to choose 1 or 2 countries, we help them through that. And so they took their notes, they did a mind map, then it transformed into short paragraphs and sections. Again, Zoom breakout rooms have been quite successful for us. And once they established their thoughts about likes, and there were reservations along the way, but we tried to steer them towards, for example, we live in a hot tropical climate. Walking to places is not something we do commonly. And safety sometimes is also an issue. So one of the things we highlighted, which went from, oh, I'd have to walk to school, I don't want to do that, to changing it to a positive perspective and saying, oh, you could walk to school, it would be safe, the weather would be nice. And so, they took that in and they looked at it positively, that would be a good opportunity to do things differently and have a different way of living, which they can appreciate. So for this, we used, after all the writing was done, the digital presentation, we used the Book Creator app. It is a wonderful app. And the children have used it for many different activities, and especially this one. It just brought about their total engagement and celebration, because they wanted to create the cover page. They wanted to show it. Everybody could see everybody's books on there and everything. So I think this has been quite a good, positive way of showcasing their learning. So they got to plan pages in there, learned how to import pictures and everything. They talked about why they would. So the opinions in there were developed. I would like to live in France because France has, all these sports and everything. So we started an introduction, and then it goes into how they would like to eat the food in France, and how they would like that Wednesday afternoons are off in France. And so they make it their own and express their opinions. Great connection and great awareness. And they had to come up with adjectives for different countries. And we were quite surprised, but quite a few of them want to live in Alaska. So, well, because it was presented in a certain way with the snowmobiles and the dog sledding and lots of snow and snowmen, and so they quite took to that. Alaska was popular, UK was very popular, Japan was very popular. They also learned how to accept that how Japanese children get to clean their own school and their classrooms is actually a positive thing, and how um, each and every way of life is unique, is different, but we can appreciate it in our own way. So I think there was a lot of learning along the weeks and months. This unit lasted about 8 weeks. So I could see the difference from the beginning to the close-mindedness. I'm happy where I am to opening up the world to them and seeing that there is a whole big world out there, and how can I have a good life in another country as well. So this was more in detail, step by step, and we were very lucky. We had all these digital platforms to use and make that, because our sessions have been online through Zoom, but we've got a good provision going with ensuring that students make that connection with their learning and are happy and super engaged about it. Then we have the other units that we have looked at are weather and climate. Very important for us in Pakistan as well. There are certain national initiatives. We look at that as well with the billion tree tsunami that our country is looking at for reducing the global warming effect on our country, because we're getting lesser rains and there can be a water shortage as well. And we try to bring across that awareness to our students as well. So water crisis, especially in Pakistan, we heavily rely on our rivers for the water. They get awareness of that, and they create leaflets about how water aid internationally is doing so much, and so much in Pakistan as well. They also, the big part of this unit is how they calculate and reduce their own carbon footprint. So we made posters for that, again, guided over a couple of weeks with what should go in there, and for them to keep a diary of their own carbon footprint. What do they do daily, weekly, and then how can that be reduced? And how does that impact the whole world, the bigger picture? We have, the children love to make presentations. That is a strong part of our overall sharing how they have learned and everything. Then through chocolate, that's another popular unit. The Bean to Bar, the journey of fair trade chocolate. We use some Twinkle resources as well. We have teacher-generated PowerPoints as well. Obviously, I'm referring to the online digital platform that we have been using. So we have discussions. We have we kind of like channel their thinking into the awareness of noticing these the labels on different wrappers and identifying if it is fair trade or not. And understanding that what is fair trade and what is the right of the farmer at the end of the day, how from the beans to the tray to the factory, and how it gets to you, and then how are the people right at the start, right at the onset, how are they affected by it? And they are super engaged because from the beginning, we hook them on with the tasting of the chocolate and making their own recipe for the chocolate, but the international perspective is then brought in with them reflecting on how unfair certain things are and what can they do. Like I told you earlier, we try to make them think about what change can they make. They can buy fair trade chocolate, they can make the choices, they can ensure that they are contributing to it in that way. So they are aware of, and then they draw their own bean to bar for showing the whole journey. We also have myths and legends, extremely popular unit for our year 5s. And a big part of this unit is the art inspired by myths, which exposes them to different cultures. So they are supposed to relate their art to a myth from another culture. They represent that myth in their art. And we've had some fantastic drawings, some fantastic art generated by the children, and their engagement and their contribution in this. And obviously throughout the whole process, they are taking it all in, and they're talking about, other cultures, their beliefs, and acceptance of it. They used to do it that way. That was their way of showing how the world was created. So all that language comes out and is culminated in this art, which is always a highlight at the end of the unit. Then we have Saving the World, rainforests, again, awareness. So from the cultural to the actual environment, all tied in one with the Saving the World. What they do is they, amongst other activities for this unit, the international mindedness comes through the looking at deforestation, making it a very, very important concern for them. We actually also make a rainforest for them in the classroom. And then one morning they come in and it's all destroyed and taken apart, and the shock in their faces and everything. And then they have to help fix it. So that is how we start. That's like the entry point. And they research and they find out, and they are made aware of how the deforestation is affecting the world and what can they do, what needs to be done, and the kind of messages they need to send are very important. So we have some posters, as well as this time around they designed some T-shirts and gave the message, shared the message through that they have to bring the awareness to the other people as well. And something very popular that also we do is the tribal masks. The colors on these masks also represent certain things. They understand how these tribes in the Amazon live and have ways of expressing themselves, and what do these colors mean, and what do the values mean, and how life has changed for these people in the Amazon forest because of the deforestation, and how the world is changing with all of these forests being cut off. So I think all of these units for us give a holistic idea of the international mindedness, from the culture to the environment to the ways of life. There is a lot of acceptance. There is a lot of awareness that we are very happy, and it makes us very happy to see these children talking, sharing, and becoming more aware about the wider world, living in Karachi, Pakistan. So I think that's been a wonderful journey. Right. So yeah, I think thank you so much for listening to me, and I hope you get some ideas that can be applicable in your own context. And I thank BSME again for having me on the webinar. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you very much, Sarah. That was really great, and clearly just so many different examples, and it just shows you, the range of opportunity that there is within the IPC to be able to go in so many different directions. And the fact that it is having a real impact on the children, I mean, that's the end result, isn't it? That's what we're all looking for, I guess. We're seeing the move from international mindedness to this global competence. So what do you see the changes will be in that? And perhaps even Claire, you may have some ideas, because you're coming from that source, that fieldwork education. How do you think that's going to look a little different in what we're doing?
Zeb and Stephanie, do you want to go first and say how you're doing it in school?
I can. I think maybe I'll be shorter, because we haven't moved to the new IPC curriculum. I think we discussed that in one of the intro sessions we had, mainly because of staying online and having to juggle so many things. And the plan is there, the idea is there, the teachers are already looking at different units, and unofficially, but our official move could, we will start the next academic year and make that a priority to see how we can, because we do plan to start hybrid, but that has been one of the reasons we haven't been able to change over to the new one. We do plan to, but maybe then, once we are in there, maybe at another session, we can share how it's going.
And other schools are going to be in the same position. That's probably why I put it out there. I'm not expecting that everybody's all got this all nailed. It's more about how is it going to sort of perhaps slant our thinking a little different and as we go forward. Stephanie, have you had thoughts about this?
One of the things that I've looked at so far when I've had a chance is looking at the Sustainable Development Goals and how those are being brought through in the global competence aspect of the IPC 2020. So something that I've kind of toyed with and talked to some of our leadership team about is looking at doing like maybe a sort of cross-phase project, starting with the one that focuses on water and looking at doing kind of like maybe using our house system to have children out working across ages on a special project. But that's as far as we've got so far.
Yeah, I know. We're in the same position as well. Yeah. Claire, have you got any ideas there? Yes.
Yeah, we completely appreciate that this past 18 months, 2 years has been a challenge, and we've all been doing things very differently. But I'd encourage everyone to look at the new documentation on My Fieldwork and see that transition from international mindedness to international mindedness and global competence, which is really taking it that one step further. So as you said, Seb, maybe we could have another webinar in 6 months, a year's time, and really look at how that global competence, how you've made that transition across. That'd be really good, actually.
I think everybody's going to be, delving into this, aren't they, and working out. So it might be nice to share, what that's looked like as we're doing that journey together. But it's certainly exciting, and of course it keeps everything fresh. That's one thing you can always say about the IPC, that it is fresh, it is engaging. I think we all get excited because we are all learning as well, and putting a new slant or a new twist for the pupils. So it keeps it absolutely real for them, and I think that's what we all appreciate about it. I would just like to say a huge thank you to everybody involved today again. To Stephanie, to Zeb, and for Claire, who's always been there throughout these webinars and being a support there as well, from Fieldwork Education, and to our guests here today, and to guests that will perhaps watch us at another time, because we know that this will go into a video link that you'll be able to do. I hope it was useful, and we're all around as a community, so it'd be nice if we could see if we can make connections in perhaps other ways, and to keep this sort of dialogue going. And to the British Schools of the Middle East, we're really pleased that we've been able to field and for me personally to be able to host these webinars. It's been a wonderful experience. So thank you to everybody.
Thank you,
Thank
Sarah.
you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.